Begin today at the Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Samachei Amud Beis. This is a halacha of a person that is appointing or commanding someone to give a get in very dire situations. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Bar Rishayna. In the beginning, the Chachamim instituted as follows. Hayoimrim, they said, Hayotze b'kailer, a person that's being taken out to be executed. V'amar, and he tells someone, Kisvu get lishti, I appoint you to write a get for my wife. Now the problem with this is, he didn't finish off his statement. He didn't clearly say, write and give the get for my wife. Nevertheless, Hare elu yichtavu v'yitnu. So this shliach, or these edim that he said it to, they write and give the get to his wife. And the reason is because he was so confused with what's going on, so therefore he just said to write, but it's understood that he meant to write and to give the get. Then Chazru Loimar, after this the Chachamim instituted and said even more, Af ha-mefarish v'ayotze b'shayara. Even a person that's just separating or he's leaving town and he's going overseas, before he leaves he says, write a get for my wife. And this is something that we had before once, that a person would do if he's concerned that he may not come back home and he doesn't want his wife to be stuck if he passes away, to then have yibum. So even though he didn't clearly say give, over here as well we understand from the situation that he meant to say give the get. Rab Shimon Shazuri added and said, Af ha-mesukin. This also refers to someone that's not well, and he's concerned he's passing away. From Rashi, it's mashma. This is not even necessarily someone that's deathly ill, even though the Mishnah uses the term mesukan, which means he's like in a situation of danger. But Rashi says he's a chayla, and he says, write the get for my wife. You have to give the get, even though he didn't clearly say to give. Zok to Gemara, a related story to what it said in the Mishnah, Genive Yotze b'koyle hava. Genive was being taken out to be executed. Ki have a nafik, as he was being taken out, Omar, he said, Havu arba meya zuzi l'Rabavina, you should give 400 zuz to Rabavina, mechamra de Nahar Panya, from the wine that I own, which is at Nahar Panya. So give him 400 zuz of this wine. So, okay, so but now he said this, he commanded that they should do so, and there was no actual kinyan, there was nothing more than just him commanding to do so. Amar Rab Zeire, so Rab Zeire says to Rabavina about this, does Rabavina now have the rights to go and demand this from his children, to take it or not? So he tells Rab Zeire, he's an interesting expression. He says, we're on the top of Samach Vav Amar Aleph, that's 66a, right at the beginning, the first line. He says to him, Dara Rabavina l'silte, Rabavina should prepare himself a basket and carry his food for the way, because he should make now a trip to go to Va'azal legabe de Rav Huna Rabbe. Let him go to Rav Huna, his teacher. If we'll go and listen to what his teacher Rav Huna said, he'll find out that he actually has the rights to take and collect this wine that he was told that he's getting here. Now, why is that? What did Rav Huna say? So Rab Zeire explained, because the Amar Rav Huna said, Gittin kimat nosai. A get has the same halacha like a matana when it comes to this situation. If a person is a shchiv mirav, a person is about to die, so then what he says regarding a get and what he says regarding a matana are similar. And we learn out as follows. On one hand, we learn out from a matana. Ma matnosai, just like the halacha is regarding a person that's a shchiv mirav, and he says, give a gift to someone, and what happens? Im omad, if this person recovers, and so then chayzer, he's able to retract from the gift that he said he's going to give if he passes away, because we know he only said it if he passes away. Av gitay, similar with a get, kimat nasa, the same thing is by a get. If a person recovers, so then im omad chayzer, again, av gitay im omad chayzer, the same with a get. If a person recovers, you don't give the get, because it's understood he only wanted to give the get because he thought he's going to pass away. Now we learn out the opposite. We learn out from a get, and this is the point there that's relevant for Rabavina, that he should be able to demand and collect the barrels of wine. And just like by a get, even if the person did not clearly spell out and say that you should give the get, as we learned in the Mishnah, the person just said write the get, but still we say that it's understood that he meant that you should give it as well. So af matnosai, the same thing is also with a matana. Kivin the amatnu by a matana. Even though usually if you give someone a gift, it's not enough to even say give a gift. You have to make a proper kinyan. So similar by a matana, as soon as he says give, even without a proper kinyan, you're kaina, and therefore you can go and collect your barrels of wine. That's what Rab Zeire was telling Rabavina based on what your teacher Rav Huna taught, you can go and take it. So the Gemara asks on this, Maskiflo, Rababa asked on this halacha. So how could you compare the two? How could you say that you can compare a get to a matana regarding a person that's passing away? Are you going to say that just like a matana, you can give it after a person passes away? Av get yeshna lacha misa. Could you say also that there's a thing, such a possibility of giving a get after a person passes away? If you're going to make this comparison from get to matana and from matana to get, so maybe you should go a step further and make the comparison to say that you can give a get after you pass away. That can't be. So not necessarily could we compare matana to get or get to matana. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, what's Rab Abba asking here? Hachi hashta. What kind of a comparison is it? What's Rab Abba saying that I should compare it for this as well? For this, it's obvious they're not compared. A gift, that's possible to give a gift even after a person passes away. If he commands his inheritors to give a gift after he passes away, he can give it after he passes away. But a get after a person passes away, is there any such a concept of giving a get after he passes away? Obviously not. It's only possible to give a get when a person's alive. So what was Rabbi Abba's question? Just because you can't compare a get to a matana regarding giving it after misa, so therefore the other points we said before, that you should compare a get to matana, are not true. Those things, it's logical to compare them. But over here, regarding la'acha misa, obviously they're not the same. So therefore the Gemara says that couldn't have been Rabbi Abba's question. Rather, the question that Rabbi Abba really had is as follows. Matnas shchivmera b'miktsasi. Here, in this case, this geniva that said, give to Rabbi Avina 400 zuz from my wine, he's not saying, give Rabbi Avina all of my possessions. He's giving him something. He's giving him a miktsas. If so, the rule is when you give a matana, a shchivmera that is, that gives a matana, he's not giving everything away. In such a case, you actually do need a kinyan. So Rashi brings from the Gemara and Baba Basra that makes this distinction. This halacha that Chachamim instituted and said that a person that gives a gift, he says to give a gift when he's passing away, you don't need a kinyan for that. That's only in a situation where the person is giving everything away when he passes away. Because then you see that he's doing it because he's going to pass away. He doesn't want to leave anything for himself. He's not worried about having anything for himself because that's it. This is his last moments in the world. So then you say that it's all given away and it takes effect without any kinyan. But if a person gives away a certain percent and he keeps the rest for himself, what does that show? That he's thinking that I should keep something for myself because what happens if I recover? So then this matana is not like a matana of a shchivmira. It's a matana of a person that's a regular, a healthy person. In such a case, you do need a kinyan. So what Rav Abba's question over here was, why should Rav Avinu be zeiche in this wine without a proper kinyan if this is only a matana of some of the possessions of Geniva, not all? In such a case, you should need a kinyan. So the Gemara asks on this, now Miklal, does that mean that we should understand from this that Rav Huna saw, Rav Huna that compared a matana to a get, so does it mean that Rav Huna holds loy boy kinyan? That even when you only, Shchiv Mera is only giving a matana of part of his possessions, you still don't need a kinyan for that? But v'hakaimalon, we know the halacha, the takana of Chachamim was the boy kinyan. Then in such a case, you do need a kinyan. And the Gemara accepts the pashtus that Rav Huna wouldn't argue with that. So why in this case is the Gemara saying that according to Rav Huna, Rav Avina could collect these barrels of wine? And says the Gemara, the reason is, no shani hacha. In our case, we don't make this distinction, whether he's giving you all of his possessions or he's giving you part of his possessions. Why? Because the mitzvah machmas misuhu. In this case, where Geniva was being taken out to be executed, it's obvious that he was giving this away to Rav Avina because he knew he was dying. It wasn't a situation where the person is not well and he might be thinking that he's going to recover. Over here, he knew it's his last moments, and whatever he's giving away, it's clear that he's giving it away because he's dying. So in such a case, even though he didn't give everything away, you don't need a kinyan. So the Gemara asks back now on that, so if that's the svara, then in this case there's no reason to make any distinction between all or giving some away. So Miklal, would you now say that Rab Abba Sava, that Rab Abba that asked on this, that Rab Abba holds that mitzvah machmas misa boy kinyan, that a person that knows that he's going out to be executed, he knows he's going to die, and he says give this to this individual, but nevertheless he still would need a kinyan. But we know that in a situation where it's clear that a person is giving something away as a shchiv mira because he knows he's dying, that you don't need any kinyan for that. We had this before. The reason Chachamim instituted this is because they don't want this person to leave the world in such a matzav, feeling bad and all confused that his last wish can't be fulfilled. So Chachamim instituted that it should be done without any kinyan. So in this case where it's clear that he's going to die, why should you need a kinyan? So therefore, after all of this, the Gemara comes to the conclusion and says that really Rav Abba had another question here. Elo Rav Abba hochi kakashile. What was bothering Rav Abba here about the story was the following. It was the exact language that Geniva used when he said to give this wine to Rav Avina. He used a very unusual language. And here's the question. Chamre lekamar. Geniva did not say give him the wine, meaning to give him the actual wine itself. The mei chamre lekamar. He also didn't say give him the value of this wine, give him the money of the wine, meaning that the children would have to sell the wine and then give Rabbi Avina the money that they got for this wine. He didn't say either of these expressions. Rather, what did he say? He said, Mei chamra kama. He says, give him 100 zuz of this wine. So the problem with Rabbi Abba has is, as Rashi puts it, this is sort of a meaningless statement. How do you give 400 zuz of a wine? You can't get money from the wine itself. It sounds like take the money that you get from the actual physical wine itself. There's no such a thing. So therefore his problem was that Geniva used a lashon that doesn't make sense. If so, should we fulfill what Geniva says, B'chlal? That was his problem. Now the Gemara explains, but v'idach, what Rab Zayda that said that you could learn out from what Rav Huna said, that in this case he could take from the wine. Why doesn't he have a problem with this language that Geniva used? Mechamra, when Geniva used this term, give him the 400 zuz of the wine, kideli yapis es kaicha. He only used this expression to actually make the power of Rabbi Avina to collect from this wine even stronger. Rashi explains, what does this mean? If he would say, give him the wine, so then he could only take the wine itself. What happens if the wine goes sour, it becomes vinegar? So then the children will say, too bad, this is yours, take the chaymitz, the vinegar as is. If they would say if Geniva would say, take the money of the wine, so then that would mean that they would sell the wine and they would give him the money. What happens if they sold the wine and now the money that they had to give him got lost? So then they could say to him, sorry, it's your money that got lost, you get nothing. When Geniva says, give the wine, and he says, give the money of the wine, what he's saying is, you should give the money. No matter what, you should give the money. And the wine is going to be a guarantee for this money. So no matter what happens, you're going to have to give the money. Side the money and side the wine should both be responsible to make sure that he gets this value of 400 zuz. So he's using this stronger lashon adarab to point out that it's not only dependent of whether the wine is available, it's not only dependent of if the money is available, but both of them are going to be arevim, so to speak, are responsible to make sure they should actually get this. So that's why he's using this lashon of the mei zuzim mei chamre only to make the power of Rabbi Avina stronger, to make sure that he gets it. Now, sholchu mitam, they send from Eretz Yisrael, mei chamra, when a person passes away, uses such a kind of a term, give him money from this wine, kidei liyapis es kaichai. It's not a term that you should say that it means nothing, fakert. It's taket to strengthen the koyach for the person to collect. Again, continuing the halachas of a person asking to give a get for his wife and in dire situations. A person that was thrown into a pit. And there he says, whoever hears my voice, so yichtov get lishtoi, should write a get for his wife. So they don't actually see him, but they hear his voice, and so they can trust this. They can write the get and give the get. So there's two different points here. Number one, they don't actually see the person. They can't be 100% sure who this guy is. But nevertheless, we hear his voice and we can trust it that he says, I'm so and so from this and this city, and we can trust that that's who it is. And also, he didn't say to give, but like we said before, because he's in this place, so it's as if he said to give and they can give the get. But over here they don't see him. Maybe it's not this person that he says who he is. Maybe it's a shin dalet that is appearing or that's copying the voice of this person and is saying to give the get to his wife. They did not see him himself, but they could see that there's an image of a person there that's stuck in this pit. How does that help? The Shadim, they also can come and appear like the image of a human being, so maybe they're still not seeing the person himself. And says the Gemara, the Chazile Bevua, they see the shadow of this person, which is proof that it's a human being. The Gemara asks, how? Inunami islu de bevua. Even the Shadim, they also, when they appear, their existence creates a shadow as well. Answers the Gemara, the chazile bevua de bevua. What they see is a shadow of a shadow. In certain angles, the person's body can create a shadow of a shadow. But by Shadim, there is no shadow of a shadow. As the Gemara says, V'dilme inunami islu, maybe for a shed, there's also a shadow of a shadow. Amar Rab Chanina, Limdani, Yonasan Beni, Yonasan, my son, taught me that bevua isluhu, that they have a shadow, but bevua de bevua leslu. The Shadim do not have the shadow of a shadow. Now, this is something that's quoted in Chassidus in many, many places regarding the Yechidah Shebenefesh. The Metzias of the person itself is one level of his existence. The shadow refers to a higher level, which is a makif, a higher level of the neshama. And then the shadow of the shadow refers to an even higher level, which is the Yechidah Shebenefesh. Now, in Le'umazeh, the other side, when it comes to Shadim, they have these various keiches that are opposing to the Metzias and Kedusha, but not the Bevua. The Bevua refers to a higher level of a makif, which there's no existence of Yechidah by the Le'umazeh, and therefore that expresses itself by the fact that by Shadim there's no shadow of a shadow. So that's how they know that it's actually this person. But the Gemara still asks a question: V'dilmet sarahi. How do you know b'chlal that it's him, that it's this husband that he says who he is? Maybe it's a co-wife of this woman that actually hates her. That's why she's called a tzara, and she is copying the voice of the husband, and she's saying, "Give her a get." So it's not actually him himself. And says the Gemara, Tana de Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel taught about this. In this case, we're not concerned about that. B'shas sakana, because this person in the pit is in a time of sakana, and if he's not going to give the get now, he won't have any other opportunity. Chachamim said, "Kaisvim v'noisnen," you write and give the get. Afal pishei makirin. Even if you can't recognize 100% that it's this person and it might be someone else, but nevertheless, you still write the get. And some say that this answer, this final answer of the Gemara, is really an answer not only to the last question of Tzara, but it's also an answer to the previous questions that are answered about Shadim. You don't need any more the whole answer the Gemara said before about the Bavur Leslu. It's just it's a special Kula Chachamim said in this situation, because this is, otherwise the get won't be given. This is his last opportunity.
What's going to die there?
Again?
What's going to happen with him? He's going to die, right?
Yeah.
So then what's...
No, all the questions regarding Yibum, right? In all these situations, right? A person that is healthy, and he says, Kisfu get lishti, write a get for my wife. He didn't say to give, he just said write. He's just playing around with his wife, he's teasing her, but he's not planning on actually giving the get. There was a story with a regular healthy person. He said, write a get for my wife. But then he went to a rooftop and he fell down and died. So Rab Shimon Gamliel said about this, if he himself threw himself off the roof, basically he committed suicide, a get. So then this is a get, because what that means is when he said write the get, he was saying it like a shchiv minah, the last moments before he's leaving the world, and he didn't clearly say to give, but we give it anyways. However, if he was just strolling on the rooftop and a wind came and blew him off, so then ain't a get. Then it's not a get because he didn't expect this to happen. Frag the Gemara, Maise, Lister, does the Mishnah say a halacha and then bring an incident that's sort of a contradiction to the halacha that it just said? First, the Mishnah says a halacha that a healthy person that says just write a get, we can't give it as well. Then it brings a story and it says, not so simple, it depends. It depends what his actions are afterwards. Answers the Gemara, there's missing here in the Mishnah, this is how you have to read the Mishnah. If his actions later prove what he really was saying when he spoke in the beginning, so then I raise a get. So then even if he didn't say to give, you can give the get. And then the Mishnah adds, he said only to write the get, and he went to a rooftop, and he died. If he died, he threw himself off the roof. It is a get. And if a wind blew him off, then ain't a get. Then it will not be a get. Dr. Gemara, a related story, Hahu Gavre, the Ola Beiknishte. There was a person that came into a shul, and Ashkach, who does he see in the shul? He finds Mikri Yenuka, a person that's a teacher of children, Uberei, and he's sitting there together with the son, the Yasvi, and they're sitting together and learning. and v'yasav inish achrine gabaya, and there's another person that's sitting together with them. So in all, there's 3 people there, and there's a father and a son. Amaluhu, so this person that walks into the shul says to them, Beitrei minaychu nichtevu gitte l'debisu. 2 of you should write a get for my wife. Now what happened? L'soif shachiv mikri yenuke. The person there that was the teacher, he was the father of this, he was sitting there with his son, so he passed away. So now the question is, this person that asked them to write a get, he asked 2 of them to write a get, he's not here anymore. Now the question is, mi mashvu in inshi bra shliche b'mokem abba. When he said the 2 of you should write a get, do we say the 2 of you could mean either this person together with the other person that's there, or does it also mean if this person passes away, the teacher, if he passes away, so then the son, he could write the get together with that other person. Do we say that when there's a father and a son sitting together and a person says, the 2 of you should write a get, he also means to a point if it will be necessary that the son should be there to be a shliach. Again?
Came in.
No, the person that came in to ask to write a get, right? And then he left town, and we can't ask him anymore what his intention was. But now this teacher passed away, and now all you have over here is the son and this other person that was sitting there. So do we say that instead of the teacher writing the get, so now the son can write the get instead of the father? Oiloi, or maybe not. Maybe a person will not appoint a son to do something. If the father is there, he definitely meant that the father should take care of this. The son that's sitting there, the son in the place of the father is insignificant. He didn't mean to appoint the son at all. So the Gemara brings an argument about this. Rav Nachman says, a person will not appoint a son to do something like this, to write a get in the place when the father is there. He definitely was referring to the father and this other person. Rav Papi but Rav Papi says, no, mashvi inshi bra shliche b'makom abba. When a person says this, he is appointing even the son, if necessary, to be the shliach instead of the father, or even when the father is sitting there. Amar Rava, and Rava said, Hilcha said, the halacha is mashvi inshi bra shliche b'makom abba. A person does appoint a son to be a shliach even if his father is sitting there. Sagt Heilige Mishneh, another halacha of a person appointing people to write a get for him. If a person says to 2 Eidim, Tunu get lishti, you should give the get for my wife. So he only said to give, right? So till now we had the case where a person said only to write. Over here the person said only to give the get. Okay? Oi l'shloisha. So this is to 2 people. Or if it was to 3 people, he said kisvu get. So he said to 3 of them, write the get for my wife, utunu leishti, and give it also to my wife. So in both of these cases, the halacha is harei elu yichtevu v'yitnu. They themselves are the ones that must write and give the get to his wife. And now the chiddush of both of these cases is, you may think that in the first case where he only said tnu, so that maybe what that means is that this shliach or these shluchim now, they could appoint someone else to write the get or sign the get. As we'll see in the Gemara, when it comes to the concept of ksiva, there's 2 parts. There's the writing of the get itself, and there's the signing of the get. So maybe you would think he only said to them, give it. So maybe they can ask someone else to write it, and then after someone else writes it, they're going to go and give it. And similar in the second case here, when it says shloisha, even though he told these 3 people, write it and give it, but it's 3. If it's 3, so then it's like a bezdin. When you ask a bezdin to do for you something, not necessarily should the bezdin have to go and write the get itself. Maybe he's appointing the bezdin to make sure that the get will be given to his wife, but he could ask others to write the get. So the Mishnah is saying, no, if when he appointed these shulchim to write the get for him, whether 2 or 3, they have to write the get themselves and give the get themselves. Okay, there are various reasons for this. We'll see a little bit in the Gemara over here, but we had once before in the Gemara, it was earlier in the Masechta here, it was quoted, where it explained different reasons for this. One of the reasons it said is because when a husband appoints shluchim to write and give a get, he doesn't want the whole world to know about this, that he's giving a get to his wife. So if you appointed them to give a get, he wants them to give the get and not them to go and ask someone else to give the get, that other people should know about this. The Gemara calls it bizoyin debal, that the husband doesn't want to be totally embarrassed by this, that everyone should know about it. That's one reason. Another reason, which the Gemara will bring up here, we'll see soon, is a concept of mili loy mimsar on l'shliach. That if you don't have a physical get in your hands, you're appointed to write a get. So then you basically only have a shlichus from the husband, which at this point is just words. He's asking you to do something for him. That's not something that this shliach could give over to someone else. You have to go and do it yourself. You don't have the power to give this over to someone else. Okay, we'll see more about that in the Gemara. But now the Mishnah says, however, that in a case where Amal Shloisha, if he tells 3 people, which 3 can be a bezdin, and he tells these 3, Tnu get leishti, give the get for my wife. So over here, he didn't tell the 3, you write and give. He just said, give the get to my wife. Then hare elu yoimru lacherim, they have the right to go and tell someone else that he should write it, that he or they should write the get and sign the get. And then these 3 just have to be sure that the get is given to the wife. Why? In such a case, he's appointing them into a bezdin. Meaning, if he specifies clearly that you should write and give, so then what that means is, I want you to write and give it. But if he just says give, so then you don't have to actually write it. I just want you to be the bezdin to take care that that the get should be given, and he doesn't have a problem if you appoint someone else. Over here, according to both reasons that I said before, we're not concerned that the husband is embarrassed that he's telling someone else to do it. He's appointing them as a bezdin. If it's a bezdin, you know that a bezdin asks other people to do things for them. The bezdin doesn't take care of all the details themselves. And also, as we'll see in the Gemara, the issue of mili lemimsar on the shliach doesn't apply here as well. Okay, this is all divrei Rab Meir, Rab Meir's opinion, that made this distinction whether we see his intention is to make them into a bezdin or not. And also, vizu halacha, this halacha here, that by a bezdin, they could ask someone else to write the get. Hela Rab Chanina ish oinem yibeis asurim. Rab Chanina brought this halacha from prison, and as Rashi says, what this means is he was in prison there where Rabbi Akiva was, and when Rabbi Akiva was in prison, he taught this halacha, and he brought this halacha in the name of Rabbi Akiva. That mekubal ani, that I have this halacha that was given to me. Ba'omer l'shloisha tnu get leishti. When you say to 3, just give a get for my wife, so that means that he's appointing them as a bezdin, sheyoimru la'acherim v'yichtavu, so they can tell others to write, and to write this get, nitnei she'asam bezdin, because now these 3 are a bezdin. But now the Gemara brings the Amar Rabbi Yosi argued on this, and Rabbi Yosi says, noiminu l'shliach, we said to this shliach, who's this shliach here? The shliach here is referring to Rab Chanina. He was this messenger that brought this halacha from Rabbi Akiva, so we said to this shliach, af anu mekubalin, we also have a tradition about this halacha, and our tradition is different. That we don't make an exception if he's appointing a bezdin. Shafila Oma lebezdin agadol sheb Yerushalayim. Even if the husband would be speaking clearly to a bezdin, he's speaking to the greatest bezdin that's in Yerushalayim, and he's telling them, "Tnu get leishti, write a get for my wife." So they have. Tnu means to give the get. Nevertheless, what that means is sheyilmadu v'yichtu v'yitnu. If they don't know how to write a get, they better learn how to write this get and give the get. They have to do it all by themselves. There's no exception that by a bezdin we say that the husband is allowing and you're able to have someone else write it for you. Okay, so that's the machlokes regarding a bezdin. Now the Gemara says, the Mishnah here says another halacha, Amar la'asara. What's if a husband says to 10 people, Kisvu utnu, you should write a get and give it to my wife? What did he mean to say? Again, it goes together. Kisvu utnu get leishti, write and give the get to my wife. Does he mean that all of them have to write and all of them have to give? No. What he meant to say is, Echad kaisev, one of them writes the get, Ushnayim chaismim. 2 out of these 10 will write the get. He's speaking to 10 people, so to like this, someone is going to go ahead and do it. But he doesn't mean that all of them have to do it. But if he spelled out and said, Kolchem ksuvu, he didn't just say, Kisvu tnu, but he added, Kolchem, all of you should write the get. So then what this means is, Echad kaisev, one of them writes the actual get, but v'kulam chaismen. When he said Kolchem ksuvu, he meant the signatures. They're all going to have to sign the get. So lefichach, so therefore, in such a case, in meis echad men, if one of the 10 people dies, harez a get batal. So there's no get there. You don't have all 10 to sign this get. Zok the Gemara, Rab Yirmiyah bar Abba. Rab Yirmiyah bar Abba said, Sholcholem yibei Rav Shmuel. They sent from Shmuel to ask the question. Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu. Again, sorry, I didn't read it right. Sholcholem yibei Rav lishmuel, that is. They sent from the yeshiva of Rav to ask Shmuel the following question. Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu, let our teacher Shmuel teach us regarding the pshat of our Mishnah. What is the correct pshat of the Mishnah? The whole Mishnah is discussing giving the get and writing the get. So giving the get, we know what that means. But writing the get, what does writing the get mean? Does writing the get mean the actual nusach of the get itself, or does writing mean the signatures? Person says to two that you should write and give the get to my wife. And so what did it say in our Mishnah? That they have to write it themselves. But what happened? Now they told a scribe to go and write the actual get, but they did sign the get themselves. Mahu, what's going to be the halacha in such a case? So as I said, in essence, the Gemara is asking a question regarding our Mishnah when it says that they have to write it themselves. Does it mean to actually write it? Or no, they can give it to a sefer to write. The main thing is that they have to sign the get. And as it says over here, the Mefarshim, the Pshat is because only when you sign the get, that's when everybody knows about this get and the divorce happening. And maybe we should say that only then the husband doesn't want you to have someone else sign it because that's gonna be what causes him to become embarrassed by everyone finding out about it. But the fact that a sefer is writing it, maybe that's not an issue. Shalach lahu. So Shmuel answered back, Teitzei, that if this woman that got such a kind of get already went and got married to someone else, she has to leave that new marriage because it's not clear if the get that she got is a good get. Vadovat tzarich Talmud. And this is a matter that needs to be further studied. Meaning, Shmuel didn't say conclusively one way or another whether it's a good get or not. He had a doubt about this. So the Gemara explains, My hadavet tzarich Talmud. What was exactly the doubt that Shmuel had about this? If you're going to say that his suffix was mishum the havaluhu mili, because maybe we could say that the issue that there is with these shluchim giving over the writing of the get to someone else is that they can't, because they don't have an actual document of a get that the husband gave them. All they have is words, a command that the husband asked them to write a get. And on Misapkale, the doubt of Shmuel is, do I say, regarding Mili, is this something that you could give over to the Shliach? Or it's something that you can't give over to a Shliach. Right? So this idea of Mili lemimsar on the Shliach we had before in the Masechta, when a person is an actual Shliach, where he has a get itself, so then the Shluchai shel Adam kemaisai, you take the place of the husband in a much stronger way. He already gave you the actual physical get, and therefore you're a real Shliach, and you can appoint another Shliach in your place, just like the husband himself can. But if all you have is the words that the husband is telling you to go and do something, but you don't have an actual get yet, like the husband himself, to give a get, so then the shlucha shalom kemaise is not to the same extent. So you don't have the power to appoint someone else to be a shliach. That's the svara why mili should be different. So should we say that Shmuel had a doubt about this, and therefore he said he's not sure in such a case where they gave over to someone else, they appointed another shliach to write the get, whether that would work or not. Says the Gemara, that can't be the case here, because V'ha'ama Shmuel, we know that Shmuel has no doubt about this. Shmuel said, Omar Rebbe, in the name of Rebbe, halacha k'Rabbi Yosi, that we paskin like Rabbi Yosi, and that's actually Rabbi Yosi in our Mishnah. The Omar, what did Rabbi Yosi say in our Mishnah? That when you appoint someone to write a get, doesn't matter who it is, even if you appoint 3 people, and they're like a bezdin, but nevertheless, they have to write it themselves. Why? The Omar, mili loy mimsar l'shliach. The basis of Rabbi Yosi's opinion is that nobody could ever give over such a kind of shlichus to someone else because it's just words. So if he said the halach is like Rabbi Yosi, so if so, we see that he holds that you never could give it over to someone else. And now the emphasis is that it's not only, he understood that not only Rabbi Yosi holds mili lemimsar on the shliach, even the Tana before in our Mishnah, Rab Meir, that argued with Rabbi Yosi, also holds of the idea of mili lemimsar on the shliach. Elamai, the Meir held that when it comes to a bezdin has a different power. Bezdin could give over even such a weak shlichus to someone else. But certainly, if he's saying that Allah is like Rabbi Yosi, we see that he's paskening this idea of milei lemimsar on the shliach. That's how he understood the pshat in the Mishnah. So that can't be the doubt. Ella says the Gemara, l'shmuel hakam yibayale. The question over here, whether when these shluchim gave over the writing of the get to someone else, the suffix of Shmuel would be as follows: Hai kesuvu. When we say that the writing of the get, that the shliach himself has to write the get, iksav yadam, does that mean that they have to sign the get themselves? Iksav a get. Or maybe the term ksuvu means that they have to write the get. It's a suffix about the actual lashon. Does it mean the writing or the signature of the get? That's the suffix. Okay, now the issue of mili does not go away. The Gemara is going to come back to that in a moment. But first the Gemara says that the suffix over here is, what does the writing of the get consist of when we say that the shliach himself has to write it? So the Gemara says, shouldn't we just read what it says in our Mishnah? We could resolve this. Let's be paisha this shaila from what it says in our Mishnah. A person says to Tushluchim, write the get, give the get for my wife. Or he told 3 kisfu get. Write and give the get to my wife. What did it say in our Mishnah? They have to write and give the get themselves. So the Gemara is understanding. The Mishnah said the word yichtavu. What does yichtavu mean? Write. Write doesn't sound like signing. Write sounds like they have to write the whole get themselves. So we clearly see in our Mishnah that it's not enough if they sign the get, they have to write it themselves. They can't give it to a sefer to write. But the Gemara says, no, he gufa komi bayale. That itself is our shaila. Ksuvu, when it said in the Mishnah ksuvu, ksav yadanhu, does that mean just their signatures? Oh, ksav agetu. Or maybe it includes the writing, the whole entire writing of the get. So the Gemara now says, no, from our Mishnah itself, we could also resolve this. Pshite the ksav agetu. It must, in our Mishnah, it must have been referring to the whole writing of the get. Why? Based on what it said in the continuation of the Mishnah. The Ktani Sefer, the Mishnah afterwards says, Rabbi Yosi says, Numinu l'shliach, we told Rabbi Chanina that brought this halacha from Rabbi Akiva, that afanu mekubalim, we have a tradition that the halacha is, shafila oma, lebezdin agadol shab Yerushalayim, tnu get leishti, even if a person is telling the great bezdin Yerushalayim, give a get for my wife, shel yilmadu v'yichtavu v'yitnu, that they have to learn how to write a get, and they have to give the get. Now, the Mishnah here uses the term that the great Bezdin in Yerushalayim has to learn how to write a get. What does that mean that they have to learn how to write a get? They don't know how to write a get. So the Gemara, this is the great Bezdin in Yerushalayim. So the Gemara explains, if you're going to say when it says here that we're talking about the actual entire writing of the whole get, so then shapir. So maybe that we could understand. It is possible that even the great Bezdin Yerushalayim, they won't know how to write a get. So after all, writing a get is a couple of lines. It's so therefore maybe they don't know how. There's a lot of halachas exactly specifically how you write it. So it's possible to say that they wouldn't know how to write a get. That's why the Mishnah says they have to learn this. If you're going to say the term writing in the Mishnah just means a signature, could it be that there's a Bezdin Agadol in Yerushalayim and the Mishnah is saying that they have to learn how to sign a document? They don't know how to sign their name on a document. So in our Mishnah, it must be talking about writing the whole get. But the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Yes, it is actually possible. It's possible for there to be a situation where it's a new Bezdin, the people were just appointed now to be a Bezdin, and they haven't signed any documents up until this point, and this is the first time that they're going to have to learn how to sign the get. Very interesting, but it's still a possibility. So therefore, the Gemara says there's no raya from our Mishnah what the term writing means. Does it mean the writing of the whole get, or does it mean the signing of the get? Okay, so what comes out from what we're learning till here, that the Gemara is saying that's the suffix regarding the term ksiva. But now the Gemara comes back to the previous point, but v'i svirulon, the high ksuvu ksav yadanu. Now, if you're going to say that the term ksiva means that they only have to sign the get, ksava get kosher, but the actual writing of the get, that they could appoint someone else to write the get for them, but how? The question still remains, the point that we mentioned before. We pass like Rabbi Yosi. If a shliach gets a shlichus which only consists of words, that's something you can't give to anyone else. So regardless of what the term writing means when the husband said so, that was he makbid that only they should write the get, or does he agree that someone else should write the get and they only have to sign it? But this is an aspect of shlichus that you can't give over to someone else. So what's the suffix here, according to Shmuel? So the Gemara answers, this case is different. Amri, so they answered about this, Yisvirulon. If we hold the ksuvu, ksav yadanu, that when the husband said write the get, all he meant is he should just sign the get, so then ksava get. So regarding the actual writing of the get itself, nase ka'omer imru. So over here, the husband never said you should write the get. What the husband meant to say to the shluchim is, you go and appoint someone else to write the get. And that's what's called omer imru. He's telling the shliach, omer, he's telling to them, you go and say to someone else to write the get. And Rabbi Yosi, that says that you can't give over words. The first shliach that got a shlichus, which just consists of words, cannot give over this shlichus to someone else. But if the mishaleach is appointing the shliach with words and he's saying, I command you to give over to someone else this shlichus that I'm giving you, then they could give over this shlichus to someone else. And the reason why this is an exception, so the Achrayim explain, the reason is because just like the Mishaleach himself could command someone else to do so, they're basically telling the Shliach, you be in my place to command, to give it over to someone else. If they're just giving over the shliach, a shlichus to do something, and they're not giving a physical get, they're just giving over a shlichus of words to get something done, so then that's not something they can give over to someone else. But if the mishalech is explicitly commanding the shliach, I want you to command to someone else, so then that's the shlichus. That's the whole shlichus is that you're in my place for this to command someone else, and therefore they could give over the shlichus for someone else to write the get. So therefore, in our mission over here, that's not an issue. If we're going to say that all the husband said, write the signatures on the get, then the writing of the get, that they could give over to someone else. And here, the continuation of the Gemara will discuss this subject according to Rabbi Yossi, Oime Imru, when the husband is commanding that you should ask someone else to write the get. Okay, we'll stop over there.